The Morning Drive podcast from Double T 97.3 is presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
With Jamie Lent and Jeff McGuire, I'm Chuck Heinz. Somebody asked about this on the chat line. The answer is yes. Have you mentioned Hunter Dobbins winning in his major league debut? Jeff did in his Sports Center, but I did. It's funny because that's really where I wanted to go next and just get Jamie's thought on that for Hunter and what a big moment that was for him to be able to get called up and win in his major league debut. That's pretty good. He gets called up as a 27th starter or 27th man for the Red Sox as they had a doubleheader against the St. Louis Cardinals. You do what he did, and you make it stay a little bit, Jamie.
Yeah, absolutely. You would like to think he's earned himself a shot, but you really never know. It really depends on the situation with their staff. But, called upon to, hey, we need a guy, and you're a guy. And he gave him 5 strong innings and led him to a win, so you'll definitely take that.
He was added to the 40-man roster this past winter, according to the tech notes. And so he gets called up on Saturday night, so probably a real quick turnaround for him. He was 17-16 in his minor league career, but I think maybe, Jamie, the more impressive thing is a 388 earned run average in 63 games during that minor league career.
Yeah, he was their minor league pitcher of the year last season. So,
with stuff like that, you knew that he was probably on the cusp of getting a call up, right? He was an 8th round pick in the 2021 draft by the Red Sox. So we'll see.
Another one of those guys that you just really felt like you never got all of because he was hurt for 1 year, and then the 2020 season he looked like he was really going to be good for you, and then you didn't get much of him.
Yeah,
before COVID hit.
Before COVID hit, right?
Yep.
So that probably, anymore. It's so hard to tell with baseball, I think, because you look back at this, he's an 8th round pick. Well, an 8th round pick in baseball is still pretty good.
Oh, no, it's very good.
Yeah. But when you think about 8th round pick in other sports, like, it's funny because there's less guys on a baseball team than on a football team, but an 8th round pick, if they make it in the NFL, it's almost considered a miracle. Whereas an 8th round pick
it is because there is no 8th round picks in the NFL.
I guess it's just 6 now.
7.
7. Okay, so there you go. So anyway, so I guess my point is that. And this just speaks to the fact that you have a chance to develop more, and the baseball guys aren't lake ready, so to speak, to play in the major leagues, or at least very few are coming right out of college or right out of high school, as opposed to college basketball, where looks like the Duke kid's going to be the number 1 pick overall, and he'd be foolish to go back and play at Duke another year, and he was just a freshman. And then
I don't know about foolish, but clearly it makes sense for him to head to the NBA. But to go to college and work on your education more, or what, I don't know, that's foolish. Still getting paid a lot of money,
right? I think the number, his NIL number, Jamie, I want to say it was somewhere between $3 and $5 million.
Yeah, that's probably.
I think 5.5. I think is the number that I heard. So you start looking at why teams are where they are. And unfortunately, some of that you just look at, okay, well, how much are they paying everybody? Whether it's name the sport, and we've talked about that, and this court case could get resolved today, so we'll talk about that at some point in time. But anyway, I thought that was really cool for him. And when you go up when you go up and you perform like that, you wonder, okay, it probably wouldn't take much, a blister or pulled hamstring, for him to have more than just a spot start, right? Yeah,
and sometimes those guys that are put in the situation that Hunter was put in have an advantage because teams haven't seen him, and there's less scouting, and so maybe some of those guys have faced him less. Now, some of them have probably faced him coming up through minor league ball, but those veterans that have been in the bigs for a while probably have never faced him, and so ultimately that gives him, the pitcher, a little bit of an advantage. Yeah. So if he can deal with his nerves and all that good stuff and execute pitches. Since they don't have a feel for him, and he has a little bit of an advantage. And so a lot of times you see those guys come up and they throw pretty well their first time out.
Yeah. So
can you do that consistently? Can you make adjustments when they make adjustments to you?
Yeah. Can you do it again? Right. That's I always tell people, not with regard to anything athletic, but generally speaking, I can do anything once. It's just the second time that's iffy.
Well, it's not. Life is not about what you can do great one time.
I know.
It's what you can do consistently.
Right. Yeah.
And every employee that you have at your work can show up and be great one day because he's trying to impress the boss or he's trying to impress somebody. But what do you do consistently?
Yeah.
And right now, that is exactly what Coach Tadlock and Coach Gardner are asking their bullpen.
Yeah.
Which of you guys can go back-to-back outings being very good? Because right now, you're getting good outings every other time-ish from some of these guys. And it is head-scratching.
Yeah.
If they were just bad all the time, you'd say they're not good. But, I mean, the every other time thing has got to have the coaches in the dugout flipping coins. Okay, which guy do we think will be good today? I don't know. Which guy?
Which guy?
Who was bad last time? We'll go to him now because he's going to be good this time.
Good this time.
Yeah, if he was good last time, don't go to him because he's going to be bad this time.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way it feels right now.
We get this from the Yates Flooring Center chat line. I'm curious about this because I don't recall him. I wanted to see if you guys did. Houston had a miraculous comeback in the only game Security Jim, a.k.a. the Midnight Rider, had time to watch this season. One game. Lucky me, got to secure center court last year for UConn and Purdue with Gene Cady, actor Rocky Carroll, and Rick Ross. I'll pick Houston to win, and I'll be wrong as usual. I'll kick MLB and the Peanuts later on behalf of Hank Aaron and Aaron Judge. All rise, please. There's a lot there.
There was a lot there.
There was a lot there. Well, thank you, Security Jim, a.k.a. the Midnight Rider.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
This Coach Glasgow has Texas Tech softball building momentum for conference title. He sure does. They won another series over the weekend. Absolutely does. We'll get some of that as well. But first, next, it'll be This Day in Sports History this morning on Double T 97.3.
This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
This Day in Sports History today is Monday, April the 7th, 2025. Here is Jeff McGuire.
Starting in 1951, it was the 105th Grand National. John Bullock wins aboard a 40-to-1 shot nickel coin of 36 runners that year. Only 3 complete the course. 1969, Dodgers' Bill Singer is credited with the first official save. This one against the Reds.
69?
I think that's the year they put it in, obviously. I can't remember if there was a bunch of discussion. I was too young to, I can't remember why they did this, but it was, just maybe maybe relief pitchers were becoming a little bit more prominent then. The number of complete games were lessening. I don't know.
I think it's valuable, person. It's one thing to be able to get 3 outs in the 5th or 6th, but it's another thing to finish out a game. Those outs are a little bit more difficult to get, so I think it's a stat that's worthy to keep.
Yeah.
1977, former Red Raider baseball player Doug Aloute is in his second season in the MLB, and first with the Blue Jays, homers twice on opening day in a 9-5 win over the White Sox. 1984, Detroit Tiger Jack Morris no-hits the Chicago White Sox 4-0. 1997, in the 150th Grand National, Tony Dobbins aboard New Zealand's bred Lord Gilly wins at 14-1 by 25 lengths. The race was actually postponed 2 days because of an IRA bomb threat.
Would you like to know this past weekend was the 2025 Grand National?
And
it was won by Patrick Mullins, riding Nick Rocket. From an initial entry of 90, 34 started with 16 finishing. It was the 177th running of the Grand National. Okay.
2001, Jason Rainey goes 5 for 10 during a doubleheader in which Texas Tech hits 5 home runs and beats Iowa State 9-3 and 12-2. It is National Coffee Cake Day.
Oh, I'm a big fan of the coffee cake.
My mom had a really, really good recipe for it that I think my sister has duplicated, but I have not. Because I don't ever need to eat an entire coffee cake.
Yeah, my mom could make a really good coffee cake, too, with cinnamon on top. And
so good.
Are you a fan of the coffee cake, Jamie?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was a fan of coffee cake before I was a fan of coffee.
Yeah, me too.
Jackie Chan, 71. Russell Crowe, 61. Adrian Beltre, 46. Francis Ford Coppola, 86. Tony Dorsett, 71. Tiki Barber is 50. And I bet you can tell me who else is 50 today.
Rondé Barber.
Rondé Barber is 50 to me. Correct.
Jamie Lent to the head of the class. Good job.
And on this,
Wasn't that difficult?
Well, it gave me pause, and you hit the buzzer first, so you won.
Okay.
And on this day, 1954, President Dwight D. Eisenhower coins one of the most famous Cold War phrases when he suggests that the fall of French Indochina to the communists would create a domino effect across Southeast Asia. The so-called domino theory dominated U.S. thinking about Vietnam for the next decade. And that is this day in sports history.
All right, this day in sports history, 6:49 this morning, here on the Morning Drive. So just reading a little bit about the history of the save, Jamie. It actually goes back as far as 1952 in terms of the save being used as just a term. They awarded a couple of executives, one for the Cardinals, one for the Pirates, and a statistician of the Dodgers awarded saves to pitchers who finished winning games but were not credited with the win, regardless of the margin of victory. The stat was largely unnoticed. Then a formula was created for saves by baseball writer Jerome Holtzman, who was a Chicago based writer, I believe. He felt that the existing statistics at the time, ERA and win-loss record, did not sufficiently measure a reliever's effectiveness. Then Holtzman eventually presented the idea to the publisher of the Sporting News, and that guy gave Holtzman a $100 bonus. And Holtzman recorded the unofficial save statistic in Sporting News for 9 years before it became official. The Sporting News in 1960 also introduced the Fireman of the Year award, which was awarded based on the combination of saves and wins. So there you go. And it became an official Major League Baseball statistics, as Jeff said, in 1969. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. When it all took place. So there you go. 6:50 this morning here on the Morning Drive. Bullfighter says, did you see Wyatt Langford hit the go-ahead home run off of Mason Montgomery? What's your thought on Mason Montgomery, and does he get credit for being a Red Raider here, or is it a little bit of both? You're
talking about Mason Molina?
Mason Molina. Okay. I had Arkansas in my head. So Mason Montgomery's good. He's still a good guy for us, right?
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Okay, still a good guy.
He's still in the in crowd, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's in on being a Red Raider.
Yeah.
When you're out on being a Red Raider, you're in the out crowd.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking off the top of my head here, so that wasn't.
Well, there was that one time when I mentioned that he got called up to the big leagues, and I called him Mason Molina, so that still sticks in my craw.
That you did that.
Yes.
Well, it's an honest mistake, right?
Yeah. Well, I should be better.
Well, we can all be better. Somebody wants to know off the chat line with regard to Texas Tech softball and Nigeri Kennedy. Can they pay that much for a pitcher every year? Well, if the donor wants, and in reality, not necessarily, because of if a court ruling comes down today and the judge signs off on it, then you would have to find other ways to pay that pitcher, and they'll wiggle around the room with some kind of name, image, and likeness or endorsement deal, especially for a pitcher of her caliber. But just to flat out scratch out a check for $1 million, you're not going to be able to do that.
It would take away what you could spend on whatever part of your base.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think you're going to have many programs that take away from football to do that.
No.
So it depends on how they figure out to do that. Now, can they figure out a way where she's legitimately doing commercials or something for a particular business where she's actually earning the $1 million? That's the question.
Yeah.
It just feels like I have no faith in this court ruling, blah, 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 Chuck. They're going to find ways.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree.
They're going to find ways.
I agree with you. Whether it's the old-fashioned way of briefcases at bus terminals or just $100 handshakes that turn into more than $100 handshakes. But yeah,
I mean, the box is way too open to try to put things back into it.
To try to close it and things along those lines. Our friend Racer26 was in Vegas this weekend with his lucky lady. He says the music was great at the Eagles concert, but their light show at the Sphere, is that right? Sphere.
I'm going to buy him a spear and stab him with it.
Sphere. I'm not doing this on purpose. It's just one of those.
But then he'll remember which one's which.
We all have a word that we struggle with. Some of us have more words than others. Sphere. It's kind of like swordfish for me. Anyway, he was up a couple.
Swordfish, right?
He was up a couple of $100, but Mama didn't raise no quitter. LOL. Hey, there's a reason why they got all those nice, pretty buildings there in Vegas. Good job, Racer26.
I hope you quit at some point.
Yeah, that's right. You quit when you get down, right? All right, thanks for sharing that. All right, it's just before 7 this morning here on the Morning Drive. I got some Texas Tech basketball news regarding Darion Williams I'd like to discuss next and get everybody's opinion on that. Are we too worried too early? Okay.
Your daily dose of sports and fun. This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
With Jamie Lent and Jeff McGuire, I'm Chuck Heinz. Sometimes I feel like you're too smart for me because you're really smart. You're really smart.
I don't
feel like you're too smart for. I wouldn't say this show because I don't want to insult Jeff because I feel like Jeff's a 1%er. Like I heard Jeff on. I
don't know, man. I'm pretty dumb too.
I don't know. I heard you on the Bottom Line the other day, and you were on. I think you were on with Rob, I believe, and you guys were discussing something, and Jeff was like. Just like, pew, pew, pew. Guys kind of just went.
Former Cowboys quarterbacks.
Yeah. Rob doesn't realize that Jeff's a 1. No, it was something else.
That was the only thing I was like somewhat impressed with. So
no, there was something else that you were talking about that was science related or something. I'm like, and it was something kind of off the cuff that like not very many people would know, and you knew. And I was like, yeah, Rob doesn't realize that Jeff's a 1%er. And Rob's a pretty smart guy, too. This from the Yates Flooring Center chat line. How do you feel about this? We keep Christian Anderson and JT Toppin, but not Darion Williams. I'd like to think you can keep all three.
I mean, ultimately, what's going to
depend on is the budget and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know the finances of exactly, how much they're making, how much it's going to take to keep them, and if you are in a situation where you're kind of capped out like a salary cap, you have to worry about that a little bit, right?
Sure.
Yeah, you have to be thinking about, okay, let's just throw a number and say if each of them are worth $1 million to you and your basketball budget is $8 million, okay, so how many $1 million guys can we have? We got to fill the whole team.
Right.
It's the same thing that NFL, NBA teams are dealing with, right?
And I
salary cap.
I kind of wonder on these roster sizes too. At what point in time do you have like 10 bona fide players as opposed to, or maybe 9 or 8 as opposed to 12 or 13? You'd still have your end of the bench guys, so to speak. Your walk-ons or your your guys that are your practice players and things like that. But you know going into a season you're going to have these 9 guys that are going to be, and you're going to pay more for these 9 guys, and you're going to sacrifice having a 10th guy because of what you've had to pay for these 9. I wonder that on the women's side too, where they can have 15.
Like that kind of thing's kind of already going on.
Yeah, I just think it's going to get escalated too.
Yeah.
In terms of scholarships and things like that. We get a couple comments on this. Matt Mooney comes back to make money too. Odd how that works. I understand that, but I mean, you don't want him to come back and do something for free. I mean, he's not a guy that makes $15, $20 million a year playing in the NBA. I mean, and I'll bet if you did the financial on those camps, that by the time you put in time, effort, travel, all those kinds of things, that it's not a large amount of money.
I think the texter brings up a valid point. He comes here to make money.
Sure.
At the same time, he thinks enough of Lubbock, Texas to come back.
Let's see.
I don't
try to be a part of, I don't know, the history of who we are.
I don't get why this is hard to understand, and the difference between 1, 2, and 3 in this.
Who's having a hard time understanding it?
The audience in general, not
or
any
the fan
specific
base,
person.
the fan base in general.
The chat line as being critical of guys, us being critical of guys going to go play someplace else because they can make more money, and I don't know that we're being critical of it, but them being able to go and enter the transfer portal or the NBA draft or the NFL draft or the MLB draft, whatever sport you want to talk about, and then also keeping their options open for college, that's great for them. Go forth and conquer, but newsflash, you're doing that means I don't have to care. I want you to be here. I want you to want to be here. And there's a difference in the two.
That's an altruistic thought, though.
And Tariq Owens and Matt Mooney came here for a year. They did great things. They've also come back and watched basketball games and booed Chris Beard.
That's what I'm saying. They're seen
one
Tariq
of us.
Owens wearing out Chris Beard.
They are one of us at that point. Yeah. And not everybody.
Patrick Mahomes goes and watches games at different places, right? And that, he tweets out. I mean, even something simple as that. Support of our teams at times, like after a big win or whatever. Even something as simple as that is like he's invested in it.
And you
that
can
means
leave
a lot.
And you can leave for Davis Webb. Davis Webb. Not Davis Webb.
Davis Webb's a good.
Davis Webb.
He's a good. That's a
he
good
left
example.
here, graduated, went to Cal. When Cal played Tech, his exact tweet was, Tech playing Cal. I can't lose. That's supporting his team. That's supporting us.
Do you think
we are supporting the people that support us, just like everybody else?
Do you think 2 to 3 to 5 years from now we're going to be desensitized to all of this?
I hope so. I hope we're desensitized to this faster than that.
I don't. And there's a way. In a way, I want people to be desensitized to it. And in a way, I don't. And that's the altruistic thought. Is like. You want you to be here because you want to be here. I always feel that way about people that come to work wherever the job is. I feel like that, you should come to work because it's a great opportunity for you, and it's not always about the money. And I realize that that's rule number 1, about the money. But I also feel like that opportunity and happiness also kind of fall in that line too, in terms of that old Japanese proverb from Bridge Over the River Kwai, be happy in your work.
I think I think it's a good question that you ask, because we're obviously very desensitized to it when it comes to professional sports, right? We accept that we accept that our guys our favorite players are heavily paid and they can leave when their contract expires, or they can be traded in the middle of the season, whatever. And we still love those guys, or we still love our teams. For me personally, Chuck, I was always more passionate about my Red Raiders than I was my professional sports teams. And so it just feels like it's possible that we'll all be desensitized to it. But for someone like me that loved the college teams more, there's more passionate, it affected my emotions more. I think that will. I mean, it has waned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, I'm kind of the opposite. Just because I grew up in a professional sports town, the pro sports teams were always more important to me in terms of the wins and losses than the college sports teams. Now, when we're in the season of the college sports team, and now living in a college town, that's changed for me over the years. But if I had to be just completely honest, at the beginning, I was more devastated over a loss, with the Chiefs probably than anybody else. As far as, other teams or things like that, and even the Royals for me growing up. But then, from a college standpoint, it's more about when you're in the sport, when you're in the season. That's when I get more devastated by losses. But that's changed for me over the last 20, 30 years as I've lived here.
You don't get devastated by losses when they're not playing. They're out of season.
You know what I mean, though. But I mean, lamenting. There are losses that I lament over, no question. This from the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Jamie is unfortunately correct. Players are not here for the love of the university anymore. Based on the new NIL landscape, what are the odds Tech ever has someone get their number retired? What is the new criteria for that to possibly happen? I think if you hit a national championship shot, your chances, unless you're this is just a lucky shot, probably of having some kind of immortal fame is pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a conundrum.
Doesn't mean I still don't love the sports or root for the teams. It's just different now.
Yeah.
It's different for them, and for me, it's different for me too. It doesn't have to be that way for everybody. Everybody's got their right to love the team.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, It's just, I used to always say, man, if they've got a double T on their helmet, their jersey, their shirt, their shorts, whatever, I'm all in. If they're not really wearing the double T because of the double T, it's a little bit harder for me.
Yeah, I understand that.
This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3. Presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. The Morning Drive on Double T 97.3. Jamie's question of the day on Double T 97.3 is brought to you by Connecticut of West Texas.
Well, sometimes Chuck and I are on the same page, and sometimes we are completely off the same page. Chuck said we're going to discuss Mr. Bailey at 8 o'clock, which we may do.
Okay.
But today's question of the day comes from David Bailey being added to your roster on Friday. One of the best defensive players in the country, according to Coach McGuire. A rush end that the Red Raiders desperately were lacking last year. You've now added a few of them in the portal. So here's my question for you. I would have told you heading into the offseason that was one of the areas that was your weakest. What is the area of concern for you as far as position group? Which one are you worried about the most?
You know the answer to this question for me, and I'm still worried about quarterback. I mean, you have bolstered your offensive line. You have bolstered your defensive line. You have bolstered your running back core. We hope. Same thing with your receivers. Same thing with your defensive backs. Same thing with your kicker. You've made all these improvements all across your roster. Spent $30 million supposedly on your roster this coming year. And the position we heard
30 before last week. I imagine it's at least 31 now.
Yeah, right, or more. Right, right. The position you've done nothing for, except say, okay, the guy's had surgery on his shoulder, and you've got a guy that you think is your quarterback of the future. Although I'm still really high on Will Hammond. If he
why are you?
Because I don't think that you can be 100% confident in that position right now, and I'm not even sure you're 75% confident in that position right now. And now, full disclosure, this goes sight unseen for me of anything that Baron Morton is doing here in the offseason. I'm just telling you this: coming off of a shoulder surgery like that and trying to rehab your way and not being able to throw to your receivers until June or late May, it's a huge concern for me.
Okay, so go ahead, Jeff. It's a good answer, Jeff. Chuck?
Until they fix it, And they may have done the steps to fix it, but we won't know until September. Until they fix it, it's offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. They can tell me all they want. They have fixed it. Until I see it fixed, it's still broken.
I want to say something different, Jeff, but I'm with you. I don't know that I could. It's just, I think it's harder to put together offensive lines. I think you've brought in a really group of talented defensive linemen and edge rushers that really are going to change things dramatically there. My second answer would probably be the secondary.
That would be my second answer as well. That's a 1A for me.
But until the offensive line is good, I think I'm going to be nervous about that. Because the last couple of seasons we brought in guys that we thought were going to be a big difference, and we've been mediocre. So I'm with Jeff.
And I get that it's hard to get the guys to get together, to get them playing the way you want them to play. You're mixing and matching 5 guys, but it's really more like 8 guys when you figure in rotation and injuries and whatnot, that it's hard. And everybody is looking for an offensive lineman, which is why they are so prized. But until they fix, we've been hearing for years. And it's not just this coaching staff. It wasn't just the previous. It is every coaching staff since I think Mike Leach was here. You've had struggles on the offensive line.
Help me here, Chuck, expert of all things kicking. Gino's back or he's not back?
He's not back.
Okay, well, I'm also nervous about kicker.
Yeah.
Because until you have a good kicker, you don't know if you have a good kicker.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, until
I'm nervous about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to go back to Chuck and Baron Morton. Okay, and
I like Baron Morton. I don't necessarily always want to be the negative guy, the guy that's beating the dead horse, but I think it's fair to be concerned about that.
But also, in fairness, you felt like there was a chance Hammond was going to beat him out anyways.
Yeah.
You've said that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd be harder going
back to our previous conversation, just one segment ago. You would have been in favor of Texas Tech spending money on somebody that jumps in between Baron Morton and Will Hammond.
Yeah, I think I would have. Only because you've done it with every other position. Might as well do it with that one.
Totally fair.
I mean, you have pushed massive amounts of chips into the center of the table, and I think if you were to stop 1,000 football fans as they go into Jones Stadium, that may be my new mantra here. You stop 1,000 football fans as they go into Jones Stadium for Week 1 next fall and go, this season will be a failure if, or will be a success if. I think it will all hinge on an appearance in the Big 12 championship game, fair or not, based on the hype that's building up with this team and the amount of money that you've spent on this team.
Okay. Yeah, I've told you before that, in certain positions it's different, right? If you're a defensive back and they're bringing in more defensive backs that are older or more experienced than you, you're still going to have a chance to play, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Okay. But like the running back situation this year for the Red Raiders, for those 2 running backs who were probably told when they were recruited, hey, you're going to play behind Tosh Brooks for a year and then you guys are going to get your chance to do your thing. And then they bring in some guy in front of them. That's got to be tough to take, right? Mm-hmm. It's got to be tough, but that's the business now. That's the way it is now.
Yeah.
And I think Will Hammond is our quarterback of the future. I think Will Hammond is a really good quarterback. And when I say of the future, I mean after Barron is done. I think he's a good quarterback. I think with the pieces that you have around him, you absolutely can win with Will Hammond at the quarterback position. I would have not wanted us to bring somebody in to play in front of him.
Okay. 7:40 this morning here on the Morning Drive. The Boom 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 is next.
The Morning Drive podcast from Double T 97.3 is presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
3 here on the Morning Drive. Good morning with Jamie Lent and Jeff McGuire. I'm Chuck Heinz. Great to have you with us today on the Morning Drive. We come to you from the First United Bank studio. Look forward to hearing from you. And we've had good participation today on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Go to doublet973.com to continue to weigh in. Also, the Visual Edge IT hotline is open too at 806-771-0973. With my regard to my comment towards the end of the Boom 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 about the Mavericks and free tickets for the play-in game, I guess this is fair to come back with this because a couple people have. They're trying to appease the season ticket holders for the Luka trade. What are the chances they get into the playoffs anyway? They probably won't have to honor it anyways. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. At any rate, let's see here. With regard to trying to make a comeback with the Luka trade with free tickets, that was the other comment there.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way too, Jamie?
There's probably, the sense of, hey, we're trying to do everything we can right now to please these people after they're definitely disappointed in us. So that's probably fair.
Yeah. If Darion Williams doesn't go to the NBA, is there any chance he doesn't come back here? I think this is completely negotiations. Oh, I think if he doesn't go to the NBA, which I'd be shocked if he went to the NBA. I mean, I think this going to the NBA thing is more about, hey, here's what you need to do to be able to play in our league. Here's what you need to work on. Here's what you need to improve on. Because he's not gonna go to the NBA if he feels like he's going to be a second-round draft choice, and that's where the projection is right now. Because he'd be foolish to. He'd give up money, whether it's here or somewhere else. Now, so then the question becomes, will somebody else up the ante so much to get him that Texas Tech or its backers or however it's going to work be able to afford him? That's the question.
Yeah. And does he just decide that even though he's loved it here and really had a good time and it's a good team and he enjoys Coach McCaslin and his teammates, that at this point he'd rather move on somewhere else if they're going to offer more money?
Yeah.
Can't believe it would be a situation of offering more playing time or the focal point of the offense or whatever. I think he gets all that here. I'm not saying he's the focal point, but
sure.
I mean, he's as much of it as anybody else is.
Right. I mean, and when you look at how close they came to getting to a Final Four, you can't say, well, and maybe you could when they put the roster together next year. Because, look, if JT Toppin is back and Christian Anderson is back and Federico gets his extra year of eligibility, if he decides to appeal for that, you would feel really good about your opportunities to compete for a Big 12 championship and have a deep run in the NCAA tournament, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So then you can't say, well, he's going to go play at X because they have a better chance of winning at X versus here, because you look at what you've got here and go, man, it's a pretty big opportunity. And I don't disagree with this text. The way I read it, he's not gone. He's just leaving all his options on the table. Right. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we've I think made that. Yeah. I think we've made that pretty clear this morning. It's not like he gone or anything like that. Is that how you say it? He gone?
I would say that I would still lean heavily towards thinking he'll be back.
Yeah. But I mean, is that how you say it when you say like he gone? Is that the right way to?
I mean, we could ask Hawk Harrelson, but that's his line.
Right, I know.
Sounds good. I think you nailed it, Chuck.
Okay. He gone. He ain't gone. Okay, not yet. Not yet. Somebody says this D5 is an important cog on this team. Yeah, I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
No, absolutely.
I don't think but look, it goes back to that saying that people just don't like it when I say this. Hey, if you don't want to be here, then do us a favor and leave. Because I'd rather have people that want to be here than don't. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to beg anybody to be here. And there's a big difference between outbidding somebody and begging somebody. Okay, but I'm a firm believer in not begging to get people to come here. Okay, that's me. More than others. All right. Let me ask you this question. Today's a date that's been circled by college basketball, football, programs of all sizes and shapes as a day that the judge in this House versus NCAA case is going to sign off on the settlement. There's going to be further litigation as a result of this, and so it almost makes you feel like that no matter what the judge decides to do today, that there's going to be more litigation. And then at what point in time do you get to a final settlement? And I guess some attorneys out there would tell you, oh, it's never settled. We just keep appealing and running up the bill, so to speak. But do you think this judge says, I'm going to sign off on this agreement, which in essence then would put the cap annually of what schools can provide in a revenue sharing aspect for all sports, but we know that the lion's share of it, maybe even the lion's share plus some, is going to go to football at $20.5 million. Do you think she signs off on that today?
Oh, man. No. I bet it gets dragged out a little bit.
So if it gets dragged out a little bit, then what that means is that we continue with the present deal where it's the Wild West, right? Where the Matador Club could continue to exist and you could pay guys whatever you wanted to pay based on whatever amount of money you had in your collective.
Correct.
Or whatever money your boosters or your people, your BMDs, your big money donors wanted to spend. Would you rather it be that way? Because some make the case that, in Texas Tech's case and maybe in others, that you would be better off not having a revenue share, and it's just the survival of the fittest, so to speak. Financially, survival of the financially fittest.
It feels like you're competing pretty well with that.
Yes,
in football
right.
and men's basketball right now.
Right. So if you could, if you had to choose another sport, you'd choose baseball to help bolster that. And if that was capable of being done, if the university was compliant with that, in addition to other things, I don't know, something to kick around.
And had a desire to do that. Right.
This has been the Morning Drive Podcast, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Check out our library of Double T 97.3 podcasts at doublet97.3.com.